Hey guys, in episode 4, we're going to go over how to make a safe and sensible workout program specifically for two areas, core, and we're going to look at legs. And I want to do so in about 3, maybe 4 minutes tops. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay? First thing up, I want to look at a total 360 view of how we're going to train legs. So I'm going to look at, we're going to have two different types. Basically, one is going to be what's called a hip dominant, or something that we're going to use a lot of glutes. The second is going to be a quad. And then within that, we're going to have kind of two categories. Okay? A bilateral and a unilateral. All that means is on 2 legs and then on 1. So I want to go 4 leg exercises for you and me today. Specifically, I want to go back to the hip. So a hip, this is a version of a deadlift. Okay, so you're picking something off the ground. Maybe it's a kid, maybe it's a box, maybe it's you're doing some landscaping. Okay, so we're going to put in this case, let's do a sumo or a wide stance deadlift. Okay, so that's going to be basically your first exercise. I'm not going to go over sets and reps. That's for a whole different ball game. Okay. Second, I want to go over the quads. Okay. So I think for quads, there's a lot of different ways you can go at a quad dominant movement, but a quad dominant movement is more of a squat. So in this instance, I'm going to go and use a Zercher. Okay. I think a Zercher is one of the more knee-friendly, back-friendly, but also it's a functional transfer. So you're carrying a sleeping kid from the car to the house, etc. You're carrying coolers, you're carrying bags back from the store. It's just a very functional motion. So we're going to do what's called a Zercher squat. So now that we have our 2 bilateral or 2-legged exercises covered, we're going to go to the unilateral. And I really like unilateral. My favorite as of late is what's known as the rear foot elevated split deadlift. Basically, it's just a way to load that front hip with your back foot elevated. All these exercises, you can find them on my Instagram, so if you have any questions on that, at Coach Kev Deneen, just check that out. So that's going to be first. And again, that's a unilateral exercise, one-legged. And then a quad dominant. So for the hips and the quads, or the glutes and the quads, I like to work in a couple different ways. But one of them is from a deficit. So what I mean by that is that you're at a disadvantage, and yet basically one foot is super high. This is also known as a step up. Some people do pistols. I love, and our clients do as well, various forms of step ups. So we're going to do what's called a high step up. Okay? And all these exercises are fairly different in terms of both the plane of motion and their requirements. So here we have it. Okay, we have our 4 exercises for today, and they're going to be various sets and reps. Can be anywhere between 3 and 5 sets, and anywhere between 5 and no more than 15, probably up to 12 reps. Okay, so that's number 1. That's our core component our leg component today. Now onto the core. Okay, so there's a couple different versions that I like to use. Specifically, I'm going to talk about rotation. Second, we're going to talk about lengthening. And we're going to talk about resisting motion. Okay? So all that means, basically rotation, okay, the ability to separate either your hips from your torso or your torso from your hips. One of those two. Second, lengthening. So maybe doing the ab wheel, doing fallouts. There's a lot of options there. And then the last one is resisting. So this is more of those plank motions. So you can also resist rotation and you can resist lengthening. So you're holding a plank or you're holding to prevent from turning. So I love these options, and this is where we can get super, super creative. There's so many options. Actually, there's a core tutorial, if you like, 30 days. It's up on our YouTube page, so you can look for that. Second, you can do so many things with this. So I'm just going to use the same apparatus and do what's called the landmine, or the barbell in a corner. Okay, so we're going to do rotations for those. We'll just call it landmine turns. Lengthening, so we're going to do landmine fallouts, just to keep this simple. And then resisting, so we're going to do an anti-rotation, where we resist that motion. And again, these are all super simple in this instance. So if you're in a commercial gym, you're not going to need a lot of equipment. You're going to need a landmine in a corner. You can also do this first in your workout. Okay, you can do this second, or vice versa. Just really depends on the order of your operations if you're in a commercial setting. So yeah, looking back, I think you got a well-rounded routine here. You got something that introduces rotation. So if you're a golfer or a tennis player, or you're playing a weekend warrior softball, you're going to have that rotation. The second thing is you're going to have that nice resistance and that fallout motion. That's a nice little complement to the rotation. And then last, that resisting rotation. So you have all sorts of core motions and or anti-motions that you're going to be using in this program. That's a pretty well-rounded routine. I think just keeping things simple. You have versions of deadlifts, you have versions of squats, very functional motions all the way around. I think you're going to see this transfer very well if you're a weekend warrior, if you're a golfer, if you got a lot of gardening to do, a lot of landscaping. I know I used to do landscaping and it was very, very demanding on the body. So lots of props to you guys working hard in the sun. That's it for today, but feel free to use, again, those two resources, both the 30-day core tutorial, and then go ahead and that's on YouTube, and then check out the Instagram. All these exercises, you'll find them there, and go get them.